Good day everyone. The report of Group 1 is all about UNESCO's Education 2030 Incheon Declaration. What is UNESCO? UNESCO means United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. It seeks to build peace through international cooperation in education, the sciences and culture. UNESCO's programs contribute to the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals defined in Agenda 2030, adopted by the UN General Assembly in 2015. The main function of UNESCO are to ensure that every child has access to a proper education, promoting cultural acceptance between nations, while protecting historical sites, improving technology to aid in the distribution of resources and energy, and secure the safety of individual expression and basic human rights. UNESCO's mission. UNESCO's mission is to contribute to the building of a culture of peace, the eradication of poverty, sustainable development, and intercultural dialogue through education, the sciences, culture, communication, and information. UNESCO's works to create the condition for dialogue among civilization, cultures, and peoples based upon the respect for commonly shared values. It is through this dialogue that the world can achieve global vision for sustainable development, encompassing observance of human rights, mutual respect, and the alleviation of poverty, all of which are the heart of UNESCO's mission and activities. Why do we need UNESCO? UNESCO works so that each child and citizen has access to quality education by promoting cultural heritage and the equal dignity of all cultures. UNESCO strengthens bonds among nations. UNESCO fosters scientific programs and policies as platforms for development and cooperation. Also, UNESCO stands up for freedom of expression as a fundamental right and a key condition for democracy and development, and it helps the countries adapt international standards and manages programs that foster the free flow of ideas and knowledge sharing. How many countries are in UNESCO? It has 193 member states and 11 associate members, as well as partners in the non-governmental, intergovernmental, and private sector. The Sustainable Development Goal, or SDG 4. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. The Sustainable Development Goal define the world we want. They apply to all nations and mean quite simple to ensure that no one is left behind.
So now we are going to the SDG 4 in a nutshell. So SDG means Sustainable Development Goal. So we have the 4 components of SDG 4 in a nutshell. First, we have the ensuring lifelong learning opportunities for all from early childhood to adult education. Next, we have ensuring equity, inclusion, and gender equality. Third is ensuring effective learning and the acquisitions of relevant knowledge, skills, and competencies, and ensuring the relevance of learning in terms of vocational and technical skills for decent work as well as for global citizenship in a plural and interconnected world. So next, we will go on to SDG 4's 3 underlying principles. So the first principle is we have here the education is a fundamental human right. So it is not just also about human right, but it is also enabling the right. So to fulfill this right, countries must ensure universal equal access to inclusive the equitable quality education and learning, which should be free and compulsory, so leaving no one behind irrespective of their gender, disabilities, social, and economic situation. So how about education? So, education shall aim at the full development of the human personality and promote mutual understanding, tolerance, friendship, and peace. So, education should go beyond basic literacy and numeracy skills and equip individuals with creative and critical thinking and also the collaborative skills while building curiosity, courage, and resilience. So next, we will go on to the education is a public good. So, education is public good, which state is the duty bearer. Education is a shared societal endeavor, which implies an inclusive process of public policy formulation and implementation. So, in which civil society, teachers, and educators, and also the private sectors, communities, family, and also the youth and children, they have important roles. So the role of the state is essential in setting and regulating standards and norms. So we always consider how the state is very essential to us because it gives us how we produce in a one sector. So next, we have the gender equality. So gender equality is linked to the right to education for all. So as we all know, gender equality is so pop in our social medias. So achieving gender equality requires a right-based approach that ensures that boys and girls, women and men not only gain access to and complete education cycles. So because of that, they empowered equally in and through education. So, and that particular thing, we have the three underlying principles. So now we were going to the SDG 4 7 targets. So SDG again means Sustainable Development Goal. So the first target is universal primary and secondary education. So what does it mean? The provision of 12 years of free, publicly funded, inclusive, equitable, quality primary and secondary education, of which at least 9 years and compulsory, leading to relevant learning outcomes, should be ensured for all without discrimination. So next, we have the early childhood development and universal pre-primary education. It says that by 2030, ensure that all girls and boys have access to quality early childhood development, care, and pre-primary education so that they are ready for primary education. So it means that the provision of at least 1 year of free and compulsory quality pre-primary education is encouraged to be delivered by well-trained educators as well as that of early childhood development and care. So next we will go on to the third target, which is equal success to technical, vocational, and higher education. So it says again that by 2030, ensure equal access for all women and men to affordable and quality technical, vocational, and tertiary education, also including universities. So what does it mean? So it means it is imperative to reduce barriers to skill development and technical and vocational education and training, or TVET, starting from the secondary level as well as to the tertiary education including university, and to provide lifelong learning opportunities for youth and adults. The provision of tertiary education should be made progressively free in line with existing international agreements. So that is for the third target of Sustainable Development Goal. So now we will going to the fourth target, which is relevant skills for decent work. So it says again and again, by 2030, substantially increase the number of youth and adults who have relevant skills, including technical and and vocational skills for employment, decent jobs, and also entrepreneurships. So it means that equitable access to TVET or technical vocational education and training needs to be expanded while quality is ensured. So while it is expanded, the quality must ensured because we all know that we must consider the quality of one thing. So that learning opportunities should be increased and diversified using a wide range of education and training modalities. Skills acquisitions, so beyond work-specific skills, emphasis must be placed on developing high-level cognitive and non-cognitive. So it also transferable skills such as problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, teamwork, also the communication skills and the conflict resolutions. So now we are going to the fifth target, which is gender equality and inclusion. So as you can see, we always tackle about gender equality. So also it says by 2030, eliminate gender disparities in education and ensure equal access to all levels of education and vocational training for the vulnerable, including persons with disabilities, indigenous peoples, and children in vulnerable situations. So it means that all people, irrespective of sex, age, race, color, ethnicity, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property of birth, as well as persons with disabilities, migrants, indigenous peoples, and children and youth, especially those in vulnerable situations or other status. They must also should have access to inclusive and also access to equitable quality of education for the lifelong learning opportunities. So, in a gender equality, it must all girls and boys, women and men should have equal opportunity to enjoy education of high quality, achieve at equal levels, and enjoy equal benefits from education. Adolescent girls are young women who may be subject to gender-based violence, child marriage, early pregnancy, and a heavy load of household chores, as well as those living in a poor and remote rural areas require special attention. So, in contexts in which boys are disadvantaged, they are targeted about actions should be taken for them. So, every policies aimed at overcoming gender inequality are more effective when they are part of an overall package that also promotes health, justice, good governance, and freedom from child labor. So now, we were going to the universal youth literacy. So it says that by 2030, again and again, ensure that all youth and a substantial proportion of adults, both men and women, achieve literacy and numeracy. So it means that actions for this target aims at ensuring that by 2030, all young people and adults across the world should have achieved relevant and recognized proficiency levels in functional literacy and numeracy skills that are equivalent to levels achieved at successful completion of basic education. So, that does the universal youth literacy means. So now we will go on to the last target, which is education for sustainable development and global citizenship. So it means that the knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes required by citizens to lead productive lives, to make informed decisions, and assume active roles locally and globally in facing and resolving global challenges can be acquired through education for sustainable development and global citizenship education, which includes peace and human rights education, as well as intercultural education and education for international understanding. So that is the explanation for the SDG 4's target or the 7 targets. So as I repeat, as shown in the presentation, it includes the 7 targets of Sustainable Development Goal. So now, lastly, we have the means of implementation. So it is 3 means of implementation. So first, we have the effective learning environment. So it says here that effective learning environments build and upgrade education facilities that are child, disability, and gender sensitive and provide safe, non-violent, inclusive, and effective learning environments for all. So it means that this target addresses the needs of adequate physical infrastructure and safe, inclusive environments that nurture learning for all, regardless of background or disability status. So that was the effective learning environment means. So next means of implementation is the scholarships. So based on the article that I've already read, so by 2020, substantially expand globally the number of scholarships available to developing countries, in particular least developed countries, small island developing state, and African countries for enrollment in higher education, including vocational training and information, and also the communications technology, technical, engineering, and scientific programs in developed countries and other developing countries. So it means that where developed countries offer scholarships to students from developing countries. So it says here that from one another developing countries to another developing countries, right? So this should be structured to build the capability of the developing country. So while the importance of scholarship is recognized, the donor countries are encouraged to increase other forms of support to education in line with the SDG 4 Education 2030 or Sustainable Development Goal for Education 2030, focus on equity, inclusion, and quality, and also for the scholarships should be transparently targeted at young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. So lastly, we have the teachers and educators. By 2030, so it says on the article that I have already read, by 2030, so substantially increase the supply of qualified teachers, including through international cooperation for teaching training in developing countries, again for developing countries again and again, especially least developed countries and small island developing states. So before I explain it, one thing that I assure is in means of implementation, it talks about developing countries, because as far as I know, it has a big impact if we considered the developing countries. So I will go on to the explanations to teachers and educators. So it means that teachers are the key to achieving all of the Sustainable Development Goal targets. So again, I repeat, we have the 7 targets of SDG. So it requires urgent attention because the equity gap in education is exacerbated by the shortage and uneven distribution of professionally trained teachers, especially in disadvantaged areas. So as teachers are a fundamental condition for guaranteeing quality education, teachers and educators should be empowered, adequately recruited, and remunerated motivated, professionally qualified, and also supported within well-resourced, efficient, and effectively governed system. So that is the explanation for the means of implementation. So that's all. So I'm now ending my now I'm ending this discussion. So that's all. Thank you.